So I think we're live.
We are live.
All right, what's up, everybody? This is Joe Langworthy here with Thomas Woelfel for episode 31 of Tailgate Talk 6 Column Sports Podcast. And we are streaming this live. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube. So hopefully all of those are actually working. I don't know if anybody really knows that we're doing that yet or has really caught on to that. So I'm sure we're not really going to have anybody listening live, but that is an option in the future. So should you so choose, and we will.
Listen,
we're trying to plan this out a little bit better, so we'll have it out a little bit so you can put it on your schedule.
And there's no reason why Mark Langworthy's not listening live anyway. So we gotta.
Should I text him the link and see if he can
see if he can figure that one out?
Actually, get my dad on here. Get him commenting live. I'm gonna text him the link.
Just tell us how stupid we are, but
tell us
all
how
right.
dumb we are. We need to actually have him on the podcast at some point, just so everybody that's listened and hears us talking about him can put a face to the name and see how dumb he is in person.
Figure out where you get it from.
Yeah, figure out exactly. I know he's not on here yet. That's why I'm saying that. So, all right, let's. But yeah, so obviously more. As you were alluding to,
we're going to have some live episodes coming up. Catch up on recruiting and do a preview of the basketball season, and then of course next week got to start thinking about Georgia. So definitely some exciting podcasts coming up, and anybody who wants to listen live will answer any questions you have for us. Just about. It'd be worth a listen, I think. So keep an eye out, like Joe said, for links and times for those coming up in the next week or so.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this not live, we are recording this Monday night. So Ryan Wingo has not yet committed, but that is coming up on Wednesday, I believe, is when he's announcing. So we're going to talk about that because I think there's going to be some good news there. And so,
for those who don't follow it quite as closely as we do, he's a 5-star wide receiver out of St. Louis, and he would make it the first class in Missouri history to have 2 5-star commits in the same year. So that's why we're keeping an eye on it and why it can be such a big deal.
Yep, exactly. So fun times to be a Tiger. But so this episode is going to be mostly dedicated to reviewing Mizzou's 7th win of the season. So homecoming was this past Saturday. It was a great day, perfect weather. I've heard the parade was great. I didn't go to the parade. I was already out at the tailgate, but great day and then a great victory. And, one of those ones where I don't know how you felt about it, Thomas, but there wasn't ever really doubt that we were going to win the game, but we, kind of stopped playing there for a little bit, and it kind of made, the Mizzou fan in me a little nervous. How did you feel about the game overall?
Similar, yeah. We're keep waiting for the Tigers to put together 4 full quarters of football,
right?
And I think we put together 2+. I'll call it. I don't even think they made it halfway through the second quarter or the third quarter there, but obviously get up early, and it didn't seem like our offense was really into it in the second half, but I think it was probably just one of those situations where you go into the fourth quarter up by 3 scores and they've yet to score a touchdown. You're feeling pretty good about where you're at. So it was very low stress, which for this Mizzou Tigers team has not been the way we've done it. So that was certainly a nice surprise on Saturday. I really thought it could be a nail biter that was kind of back and forth, but you got to give the defense credit. They have, I think we've seen a massive improvement really the last 7 quarters of football from them, and You saw it on Saturday, and I think that was really the big difference in the game.
Yeah. Really almost nothing negative to say about the defense. I don't know how they could have really played much better. And coming in, we knew South Carolina could throw the ball. And I think you had mentioned it, and I think it's definitely true that they had kind of been figuring out how to run the ball the last couple of games. And Mizzou made that look like they had forgotten. I think they ended up with, they ended up with 69 total yards. Nice. And running the ball, I should say, not total yards, and 217 through the air, which actually was more than we threw for. But again, we just didn't really need to.
Yeah.
And so our defense just, I think, played really well, because I think 217 yards passing is less than they were averaging. So, held them to under 300 yards total offense, which in this day and age is really good defense. So,
yeah, I mean, 217 passing yards, 217 passing yards in a game where they trailed. South Carolina obviously trailed the vast majority of the game. They were throwing the ball a lot. That's very good defensively. You take a look at South Carolina leading into the game against Mizzou. I mean, they just scored 39 points, I think, on Florida. They scored 24 on Georgia. I think most of those were in the first half, if I'm not mistaken. Over 30 points on North Carolina. They've been able to put up points, but our defense didn't let them do it. I think we had 5 or 6 sacks. I know we turned them over a number of times, and that was a huge performance from the defense, and not something that I was really expecting. Not to say I didn't think they could play well, but to hold them without a touchdown, I think I saw that was the first time since Vandy in 2019 that we've played a football game, an SEC football game, without allowing a touchdown.
Yeah.
And that's against the South Carolina offense. It's been explosive at times and been very good at others. So the defense, that was the defense that I thought we could have coming into the year. I don't think we had seen it really until probably the second half there against Kentucky. But that's a defense, not to get too far ahead, that if we see that the remainder of the year, we might be onto something,
Yeah, definitely. And, one thing that I did notice that I thought was interesting is that that defense played really well, and a lot of people played. It wasn't just, Drink's kind of MO, and it still is on offense, is that he's going to play his starters. And, we haven't seen Sam Horn since South Dakota game, I think.
Right.
We haven't seen any running back other than Cody Schrader really in a couple of weeks, and only saw Nate Pete before that.
Yep.
But defensively, we were rotating guys in. Drayden Norwood played a lot. Who else did I see that we don't normally see?
Roche has
played
been in the game. He had a sack, I think, against Kentucky, which was kind of, that was a big deal. And then, the other thing too, we got a stacked group of defensive tackles, but I was watching towards the end of the game. I'm like, I think that's Marquise Gracial. And sure enough, I think he only got 3 snaps, but still he's getting playing time against the SEC opponent. And, that's something that with all the close games we've played the last number of years, we haven't been able to really do that. And I think that's something that we're probably not going to see the results of this year, but that's something that, hey, those guys are getting a taste now. When we have guys graduate or go to the NFL, the people coming in behind them will have played, very competitive games in the SEC. And I think that's a huge factor in being prepared for future years.
Yep. And I think a couple linebackers got some time too, which I think is because Hopper and Bailey are gone after this year. I think Hopper technically could come back, but I don't think he's going to.
No.
And so, definitely key. And I think it shows, maybe it'll show Drink, maybe it'll give him an idea of, hey, I should keep guys fresh. And, sub some people in more. So, we'll see. But I did think that was very significant. It wasn't just the top 13 guys playing. I think I would say closer to 20 got some time and real significant time. And it wasn't just end of the game. I mean,
no, it wasn't.
End of the game was more, obviously. I think we did kind of have a mass substitution at the end, the last drive or two, where it was almost all backups, but it was, before that too. I think Roche's he had a sack. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think he had a sack against Kentucky, and then he's continued to play.
Oh, is that right?
I believe so. I'd have to double check, but I know he's been playing. He's seeing more of the field too, and in special teams, we've seen obviously. A number of freshman receivers get into the game. Our tight end is starting to really kind of find his footing. We even saw younger guys like Joe Moore was in the game. I know he'll be coming back. Firestone, the redshirt freshman that we got from Northwestern, played. I saw him in there. We went deep into the bench, and pulled some younger guys up and gave them a chance. And anytime you can do that against the SEC team, that's a positive.
Yeah, for sure. So what about the offense? What are your initial thoughts on the offense?
To be honest with you, there were a couple plays that, and I even talked about it on the South Carolina post-game show. I listened to that, having, obviously living here in South Carolina. And, they talked about Luther Burden, his first touchdown catch. He's double covered with the shade the way it was. I don't know how late it. I think he saw the ball fairly late, but point being, he just went up and made a play, and that's something that most teams don't have, somebody that can go do that. So that was impressive. I think he had 90 receiving and 10 rushing yards, so he had another 100-yard game in terms of just yards from the line of scrimmage. And Cody Schrader's running the ball like he knows it's his last season playing football, and he's not overly quick, he's not overly fast, but he knows where the holes are going to be, it seems, and always falls forward. And I think he had over 150 yards. And if you have contributions like that from him, from the running back room, then we're going to be a really tough team to beat, because like you said, we didn't throw for a ton of yards, but we didn't have to. And if you're running the ball like that, the passing game will be there when you need it. So
right.
I was very impressed. The offensive line played a lot better too, a lot fewer penalties before the snap, and that's going to be extremely important headed to Georgia.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna look it up. We had 6 penalties for 55 yards, which tells me that most of them were, or a significant portion of them were closer to the 10-yard penalties than procedure penalties. So we had a couple.
Is that
holds.
Offensively, or is that in total? Because I thought we had a defense.
Total.
Didn't we have? Yeah, and we had a defensive hands to the face too. Right. That was I think that was a 15-yard penalty. So.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so got it kind of cleaned up, and it's kind of weird because you're kind of okay with the holding penalties sometimes, because that's just going to happen. You're going to get called for those. It's those procedure penalties that really bum you out. So we had 6 penalties for 55 yards, and I'm feeling better about it than South Carolina probably is with their 6 penalties for 35 yards. Because we're all more procedure based and more just dumb delay of games or procedure or false starts or offsides or that kind of thing. So
the one thing that has to stop, and I'm fairly confident it happened again, because I remember texting you guys about it, is I don't know how we have a center that gets false. Like, how do you false start as the guy snapping the ball? I don't.
I don't know.
That's something that I think that they're going to have to figure out. But the offensive line's been much better. massive improvement over last year to the point where they're giving the offense a chance to, go win a game instead of just trying to hang in there long enough to let the defense do it. So,
and
I don't think there's
Javon
anything
Foster
we can complain about.
Yeah, Javon Foster won SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week.
I
Cody
think Schrader had
saw
offensive player.
Yeah. So, just I think a lot of people, myself included, were a little disappointed in how the offense played. Like you said, coming out of halftime, I'm not really sure they were awake for most of the third quarter, everybody involved. But overall, I think it was a very good day for the offense. We did what we needed to do, and we won the game. And, it's not we're not yet at a place where we can really be critiquing 22-point wins in the SEC.
I don't even think if you're a Georgia fan, I don't think you can critique 22-point victories in the SEC. That's just
unless you're playing in Nashville.
Yeah, well, that's true. But it's a difficult league to win in. So, but yeah, and the other thing too is, you say that, and obviously the offense didn't really show up the second half, and we still outscored South Carolina 10-9 in the second half. If that tells you just how dominant we were, and I think we were really bland in the second half. I'm sure they kind of packed it in, wanted to limit injuries, didn't want to show anything additional that they haven't shown yet. So
they just started calling plays to specifically put stuff on tape that they wanted Georgia to see.
There you go. Something like that. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I think, limiting injuries, furthering injuries, because I don't know if you noticed, but it seemed pretty clear to me that Luther Burden did not feel great for a lot of the game.
And I don't know, you were at the game. I don't know if you saw his shoulder injury. He definitely tweaked his shoulder on one of those deep passes that he didn't catch, but he his arm got thrown into a weird spot as he hit the ground. He went into the tent for a while, and he never really seemed the same after. So
yeah, he didn't seem like he was holding. I saw on the board. I saw it. It just looked like his shoulder was kind of,
Yeah. So
hanging
look, this bye week comes at a great time, especially with that. He missed some time against Kentucky. Like I said, he had a little bit of a shoulder knock against South Carolina, obviously. So he probably needs the week to get back up and running and back to full speed. So
it's like they always say, every team says the bye week comes at a perfect time, but it really does seem like it's going to be a really good thing for Mizzou to take this week and get healthy and, just kind of, as somebody said, take a break, because I think they've been playing football since late July, pretty much nonstop. Yeah. So, good time to, as Pinkle would say, good time to catch up on your classwork. And he kind of like wink at him.
Yeah. But you really, if you said, all right, when would you want your bye week? You'd say right before we play the best team in the country. And that's where it's at. And we go into that game with a chance to, potentially leave as the leaders in the SEC East. So,
right. Drink is 4-0 coming off a bye week. So, there's something to be said for that. Granted, he played Vanderbilt last year after the bye. He played, Vanderbilt in 2021 coming off of the bye. And he played, Kentucky in 2020. Well, we had a lot of byes in 2020.
Yeah, I was going to say that was COVID year. They had
South Carolina and Kentucky were technically off of byes because the season kind of paused there for.
And he won both. So there you go.
Both. Yeah. So
I was curious to know how he was 5-0 in 4 seasons. Or 3. What did you say? He was 4-0 in 3
seasons? He's 4-0. This is his 4th season. So yeah. And if you don't include bowl games in that, which kind of are coming off of
you can't include low level bowl games anymore.
Right. But yeah, so just kind of a overall season update, Cody Schrader up to 807 yards rushing. So he is on pace to run for about 1,200 yards.
I think he's top 5 in the country, isn't he? Top 4 in the country?
I think he's pretty close if he's not. Let's see. I like that we can just Google things like this. Let's see.
I believe he's top 5. I think Burden's top 3 in receiving.
He's top. Cody Schrader's 9th, so he's top 10.
So he's top 10. Okay.
Burden's 2nd. Neighbors has passed him, but Neighbors is at 981, which is ridiculous. And Burden's at 898, so almost 900 yards receiving. Next closest guy is 825. So,
yeah. So it's those two guys.
The two of them are pretty far out ahead. Brady Cook is 6th in the country in passing yards, 2,252. So it's pretty great. And, I think offensively we've just been far exceeding expectations.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. And it's just felt like, man, the defense, we have the talent. We said it going into LSU. It seems like we have the talent. They just haven't been able to put it together. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it might be coming together at the right time, because obviously going into Georgia is the right time to kind of be playing both sides of the ball.
Yeah. So, and it's one of those things. I think you and I have talked about it with Nate, and I've talked about it with a lot of people. It does always seem like Mizzou never really has the defense and offense going at the same time. I mean, even like 2007, our offense was, unreal. Our defense was okay. We did what we needed to do, but it wasn't really a dominant defense. But it was better than years before, which allowed us to, succeed. But we didn't have an elite defense at the same time we had an elite offense. 2013, I would argue, was kind of flipped. 2013 was an elite defense that was kind of missing a couple holes, but was overall just a really, really good unit. Probably top 10 in the country. Offense was good. I mean, James Franklin, Matty Mock, DGB, Henry Josie, all those guys. But it was more like a top 25 offense. And this is, I don't know if this is really our year or not, or if we have more in us next year. But offense and defense both look good at the same time. And I think everybody said it, and I'll say it again. It does still seem like neither unit has put together a complete game. Neither unit has played 4 quarters of their best football in a row.
Right.
Unless you take like last 2 quarters of Kentucky, first 2 quarters of South Carolina.
Yeah, that's true. In which we outscored them like, what would that have been? 20, I don't even know, 40 something to 10. Right?
Yeah. Like just crazy domination if you take it that way. But so we're playing really well, and we're doing what we need to do, but there's still more out there, and there's still we haven't hit our ceiling, I don't think, which should scare the rest of the country.
Yeah, definitely Drinkwitz goes into the bye week with things he feels like he can probably harp on. The guys are going to go in and look at the film and say, I can improve, which is obviously what you want. You don't want them sitting there for 10 days thinking that they're the best, the best, the best players in sliced bread. You want to make sure that they know that there's teachable moments, there's learning they have left to do to get better. And I think it probably helps too that it's Georgia. You're going in to obviously play a team that hasn't lost in 3 years. I think that Mizzou can bring something to the table that Georgia hasn't seen yet this year. That's, that's a Luther Burden that, look, I have to imagine this is probably going to be the first game that Georgia will have all year, maybe the last game where they, standing on the sidelines and the best player in the stadium's not on their side.
Right.
Now, obviously, it takes more than one guy to win a game, but I think that's a dynamic that could throw a wrench in the works. That we'll see how we can utilize them and see how they respond. But this has been a vulnerable Georgia team at times, and I don't think there's any reason why we can't go into the game and at a minimum think we have a chance to compete. And I mean, heck, why not us? Why can't we be the team that knocks Georgia off their pedestal? There's no reason why we can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think they're playing Florida this week, correct?
Yep, Florida down in Jacksonville. So that's a huge rivalry game for them.
The world's largest cocktail party. Is that one?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's a big game for them. That's a rivalry game. Like you said, it's always in Jacksonville, which, it's not on a college campus. It kind of has a bowl game feel to it. There's a little more festivities and pageantry around it. I think I want Georgia to win that game, but I want them to have to
work for
exert some effort. And it be an emotional game. It be something where Florida is in it till the last minute or so, and it's they're having to exert all their energy, and then then it's back to Georgia. They are still unbeaten, but they're feeling vulnerable in a way that it's like, I don't really know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's really possible. I think Kirby Smart's a good coach, and he's going to have them ready to go either way. But
yeah, you say that, but I mean, look, their first SEC game of the season was against South Carolina. They were losing at halftime. They were losing for a lot of the third quarter, and barely kind of snuck by them there. So, and obviously, we just beat the snot out of South Carolina. So,
right.
It's human nature to have won that much and start to think that you just can't lose. And, I think it's just as likely that it's, they lose a game that probably they shouldn't than it is that, they went out and go to the playoffs and get beat by a team that's better than them. I think they have to slip up at some point in time. You're not going to play perfect for that long. I don't think. You just hope that they slip up against us and not, Tennessee or whoever they play after.
Right. Sorry, Georgia's website is very confusing.
Probably direct you to their NIL investment page.
Well, there's the initial schedule thing I clicked on had all the sports, and I didn't realize that at first. And I was like, when did Georgia play at North Georgia? But I think it was like their
1938, probably.
Softball team played some exhibition there and beat them 21-0. Yeah, so I was going to say, didn't they? Yeah, they struggled with South Carolina. That was what I was thinking of. You said that. They did beat the snot out of Kentucky, though.
Yeah, they did.
And I think they beat Vandy by pretty much the exact same score we beat them by, didn't they?
Yeah, and they struggled with Vandy, too, at the start.
Yeah. So they beat them 37-20. We beat them 38-21. So
there you
exactly the same score. So, if you're playing the matchup game, I think there are pros and cons to that. I think there's possibility there, but we'll dive into Georgia a lot deeper here in a week or so. Like Thomas said, we're gonna kind of take a bye week as well. We're gonna do a basketball preview because that starts 2 weeks from today. It's tip off, so perfect time for us to have the bye week because we can start talking about both sports and we can really dive into that. But any other thoughts on college football in general or SEC before we wrap up?
Not really. I mean, as far as college football goes, it just seems like the season is wide open. I know I think Washington has yet to lose. Obviously, Oklahoma, Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, but all of those teams are going to be playing teams they could lose to. And, we have one loss. I think if we went out, we'd still need some things to go our way. But, like you said last time, the team still has everything to play for. And, most exciting season we've had in 10 years. And just enjoy it, enjoy it while it happens, because you don't get seasons like this all the time.
Exactly. So my couple thoughts on college football. One, did you know that it was illegal to do in-person scouting? Because Jim Harbaugh didn't.
We found that out today. Yeah,
and I didn't. I always figured, Arkansas probably has somebody at one of our games every game.
I don't know why you couldn't. You get the film to every game.
Right.
And
the whole I get that you can't steal signals, and that's why they do the curtains and stuff behind people, but that ends up on TV 70% of the time anyways.
Yes.
So yes. I don't know. I want the NCAA to hammer Michigan real hard, but I have no idea why.
Well, as soon as he gets in trouble, there's already rumors saying he's headed to Chicago to be the Bears head coach. So there you have it. But yeah, what's your second point?
Dan Enos got himself fired.
Yes, down at Arkansas.
Yeah, so hopefully he has a out of office set on his email, so that when students send him emails, they know that he's no longer employed and can't respond. So that's.
Did you watch any of that football game? Did you have that on at your tailgate?
No. TV wasn't working at our tailgate, so
I've never seen a more boring game in my life. That thing it hurt. It was painful to watch. It was.
I remember checking the score at I guess that would have been about noon or so, and it was 7-3 in the second quarter. And I was like, okay, low scoring game, whatever. And then when I got into the game, our game, I looked at the out of town scores and I was like, I haven't updated that. How is it still? It was 7-3 3 hours ago. How is it? What? Why are they not updating it? And then I looked at my ESPN app and it was like, no, that's final. Mississippi State won 7-3.
Oh yeah.
Which is that would have been painful.
It's totally wild.
Because it was all in the first quarter, right? That's
yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh, so man. and that offensive coordinator, good grief. That offense was not bad last year. They were competitive. They returned the same quarterback. I think their running back's been hurt, but it was Mississippi State is far from a juggernaut defensively, and that Arkansas offense.
Well, and I watched,
bad as I've seen.
SEC Final or whatever it's called on SEC Network, and they showed KJ Jefferson a couple times and literally showed him close up to show his eyes rolling. He was just literally, he'd get sacked and he'd just get up and be like,
yeah.
And just the clear frustration with his offensive line is crazy.
Yeah. And that's for a head coach.
A head coach who was an offensive line coach.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to say is I get that you have to have a scapegoat and you fire the offensive coordinator, but when your offensive line is that bad and you're a former offensive line coach as the head coach, nobody's buying it that that it was the offensive coordinator's fault.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, before the season started, we were going through the picks. I don't know if you remember, we got to Arkansas, and I think your comment was that you think that Sam Pittman won't be the coach for that game. And my comment was, I think it'll be his last game as the Arkansas head coach. And it's basically going to come down to how polite the athletic director is,
right?
as to whether or not he lets him coach the final game, because there's no way he makes it past this season unless you have a totally unforeseen turnaround. But
at this point they have to win out to be bowl eligible, right? They're 2-6, aren't they?
Yes.
So
they're 2-6.
they would have to, and they still have to play us. They still have to play.
They played Florida.
I would say that's the one they haven't played
at
yet.
Florida. They play us. They play at Florida. They play like, I think
They
still
play
have
like
nobody.
FAU or somebody.
Yeah,
FIU.
they buy someone out.
Auburn. They play. Well,
Auburn.
Auburn's terrible too.
So they could beat
win.
Auburn.
They could beat
lose.
Auburn.
But they could also lose to Auburn.
They could also lose to Auburn.
They lost to BYU. So
true.
I mean, they're not gonna. If they went out, that would be a shock. Considering they scored 3 points against Mississippi State. So, I mean, you look at the rest of Mizzou's schedule, and the next 2 games are by far the toughest, I think, in my mind at least. But yeah, that situation there in Fayetteville has gone south in a hurry.
Right, and you just love to see it.
Yep. Glad it's them and not us.
Their fans are already saying they're going to take Eli from us. So, okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's a better job. I think that there will be some jobs open probably that could be better than Mizzou, at least on the surface. But I mean, I don't know why you would go to Arkansas just to try to recruit kids that are committed. Like if Arkansas is going to be good, they're going to have to out-recruit Mizzou for Missouri athletes, and that's just with the NIL law we have. I think I think you'd be much better off at Missouri. That's
right, and even if it, from a financial standpoint, even if it is a better job in terms of they can pay more, the rumor is they didn't want to pay more for him 3 years ago. Because he's from Arkansas. He was a finalist for their job too. The rumor I've seen is that his agent said he wants $4 million. They said we're only going to give him $3 million. Mizzou said we'll give him $4 million, and so he took it. And what people, I get money talks, and if Arkansas offers him $15 million, maybe he goes, but they're not going to. So that's off the table. But also, he's now put in 3 years of work, 4 years of work, setting up his program here, doing all the work, going to Jeff City to get this NIL law passed, making this job a better job.
Yeah, I mean,
that's got to be factored in those discussions. And I'm not seriously even talking about him leaving for Arkansas. I think that's a joke. But, if there is a possibility of him going somewhere, I do think that, things like that, if it's only a marginally better job on paper, things like that, like the work that he's already put in to make it a Mizzou a better job, I think get factored in more than people want to talk about.
Yeah, and obviously we won't talk about the basketball coach that led us for Arkansas, but and I'm sure people will point to that. But turning a basketball programs around is much different than turning a football program around.
Well, so, somebody brought up what's the name of it? Frank Broyles. They're like, he left Mizzou for Arkansas. It's like, yeah, he coached at Mizzou for a year.
Right.
In like the 60s. It's a little different.
Yeah. I mean, would you take $1 million more a year to go to Arkansas? When you, like you said, I mean, he basically wrote the state NIL law himself, right? And it's given us, obviously, he's already seen a massive benefit from that on the recruiting trail. It sounds like maybe there's some kids on other rosters that might have interest in coming back. And
we'll address that in our recruiting episode a little bit.
We'll address that in the recruiting episode.
Those rumors, at least.
But the point is just that, I mean, Missouri is a fertile recruiting ground, especially in the two cities, of course. And with the new NIL law, I think would you rather work at Mizzou, maybe make a little bit less money, but have a much higher chance of success, long-term success, where hey, I've done what it takes. I can be here for the next 6 or 8 years, 10 years. Or would you rather go to Arkansas and potentially have the same fate as the last 4 guys they've had, and be there for 3 or 4 years and get out of there? So I don't know why you'd want to leave unless, if we can bump them up to 6, 7, 8 million a year guaranteed, basically, then, beyond a Michigan or Alabama or, one of the absolute blue bloods, I don't know that it would make much sense to leave.
Right. And, it's one of those things where you say it about every coach, but if the coach gets us to where we want to go and where he wants us to be, we'll have the money to pay him what he needs to be paid.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, outside of a handful of schools, yes.
Right. But if he really gets us to the point where we're a national power like he wants to be, and Dennis Gates is getting us national power in basketball, we'll just be printing money in the Mizzou arena.
Well, to an extent. I mean, Alabama's always going to be able to pay more for a football coach. Georgia's always going to be able to pay more for a football coach.
Right.
Same to, Michigan and Ohio State, just like
but again, then
basketball,
it
comes down to are you willing to take a couple $1 million more to go somewhere higher risk, higher reward?
That has a chance that you're not going to be able to get it done there and go back to being an offensive coordinator somewhere and moving your kids again. Yeah, definitely. Good problem to have. I'm glad we're talking about that and not firing him. So
and I think we'll give him a raise. I think it'll be more of an issue is at this point we'll probably be keeping coordinators. Your offensive coordinator probably sticks around a little longer just because it's only been 1 year. I could very easily see us looking for a new defensive coordinator if Blake Baker gets a head coaching job somewhere. But I think probably just as much as personal pay for Drinkwitz, I think that seeing his assistant salary pool increase is going to be a major factor in whether or not he's willing to look at other places also. So
and it seems
that
like
becomes a big piece of it as well.
Yeah, it seems like DRF is good at getting the money for that. So,
she's done a very good job at this point.
Yeah,
she's done a great job. So
we'll see. But all right, anything else before we sign off on this one?
Nope, nothing I can think of.
All right. Well, apparently we had a couple of viewers at one point on the Facebook, which is
remember to like and subscribe.
To the YouTube channel. I tweeted it out this morning. I posted it on the Facebook page. Anything like that. If you really feel passionate about Tailgate Talk, a 6 Column Sports podcast, hit me up and you can Venmo me. There are a few costs that I don't, we don't make any money off of this. So, but we, like to not lose money. So if anybody wants to support, hit us up.
Heck yeah. And hey, we are starting to get some listeners. So, we'd be inexpensive advertising as well. We'd do everything we could to make sure you get your money's worth. So.
Right. Yeah. So, Thomas is a real cheap date. So, wouldn't take much, but yeah, so that's all we have. This has been episode 31 of Tailgate Talk, a 6 Column Sports podcast. And we will catch you guys later this week with a basketball and recruiting episode. So, MIZ.
ZOU.